Norway, the tradition of having simple cabins along the sea and in the mountains with outdoor toilets, called Utedoer, was prevalent until the early 2010 seconds. However, the Norwegian cabin culture has experienced a significant change, with most simple cabins being upgraded. Despite this, most Norwegians over 25 grew up with outdoor toilets in their cabins. The oldest known toilets, known as Utedoer, were found in the Middle East, where the first civilizations emerged. Similarly, other cultures around the Mediterranean, including the Indus Valley in Pakistan and the Minoans on Crete, also had various Utedoer variants 2 to 3,000 years ago as cities grew. Some toilets were built over running water and had wooden seats, while several cities in Pakistan had a toilet in every house with a simple sewer and channels in the ground, covered with burnt clay slabs. The Romans introduced public toilets without walls between the holes, where people chatted and sat on benches next to each other. There were 12 to 14 holes, and between 80 and 90 people were given space in the same latrine in Apamea, Syria. Latrine comes from Latin, from to wash. Women and men sat separately, and they dried themselves with a sponge brought up from the sea by divers and soaked in vinegar before use, or in water that flowed in a small channel in the room. The visitors shared the sponge, which provided a practical drying system but also spread bacteria, which the Romans didn't know about. In the Middle Ages, European castles had a large sewer in the middle of the house, and people used the surrounding fields, which led to bad odors. In case of war and siege, they had to have their own places inside, and often a prince or noble would drown in one of history's worst accidents of its kind. The stone house at Gran in Hadeland, built in the 13th century, is the last remnant of the old parsonage from the same time and housed wayfarers and pilgrims. While outdoor toilets may seem like a thing of the past in many parts of the world, they still hold a special place in Norwegian culture. In fact, many Norwegians still have simple cabins with outdoor toilets, known as Utedoer in Norwegian, as a cherished part of their heritage. These Utedoer are often located in remote areas, such as along the coast or in the mountains, where modern amenities are not readily available. Despite the lack of modern plumbing, many Norwegians appreciate the simplicity and rustic charm of these outdoor toilets, which often offer stunning views of the surrounding natural beauty. However, in recent years, the traditional Norwegian cabin culture has undergone a significant change. Many simple cabins have been upgraded and modernized, with indoor plumbing and other modern conveniences. While this may make life more comfortable for cabin goers, some worry that this shift towards modernization may be eroding an important part of Norwegian cultural heritage. Despite these changes, the Utedoer remains an important symbol of Norwegian history and culture. For many Norwegians, the simple act of using an outdoor toilet is a way to connect with their ancestors and honor the traditions of the past. As such, it is likely that outdoor toilets will continue to hold a special place in Norwegian culture for years to come. Outdoor toilets are not just a Norwegian thing. In fact, they were once quite common in the United States as well. In the early days of settlement, many homes did not have indoor plumbing or running water. Instead, people relied on outhouses or privies for their bathroom needs. These structures were typically located a short distance away from the main house, and were often shared by multiple families or households. In the early 1900 seconds, advances in indoor plumbing and sanitation led to a decline in outdoor toilets. However, many rural areas of the country still relied on them well into the 20th century. Even today, some older homes in remote areas may still have an outdoor toilet or two on the property. Despite the prevalence of indoor plumbing and modern bathroom facilities, outdoor toilets have not entirely disappeared from American culture. In fact, there are still many people who choose to use them as a way to connect with nature or as a nod to simpler times. Some homeowners even build replica outhouses in their yards as a quirky decoration or conversation piece. Whether you love them or loathe them, outdoor toilets have played an important role in the history and development of both Norway and the United States. From the simple wooden structures of the past to the modern, high-tech versions of today, these humble facilities have helped to keep us clean and comfortable for centuries. In the state of Ohio during the 1920s, the population was growing rapidly, and there was a shortage of indoor plumbing. Many rural areas still relied on outdoor toilets, commonly known as outhouses. These were usually located some distance away from the main house and were often constructed at the edge of a field or pasture. In many cases, the outhouses were serviced by local workers who went around from farm to empty the pits. These workers, often called honey dippers, would use a specialized wagon or truck to pump out the waste and transport it to a disposal site. In more urban areas of Ohio, such as Cleveland and Cincinnati, the situation was somewhat different. Many residents of these cities lived in apartment buildings or tenements that lacked indoor plumbing. In these cases, a central toilet block was often provided for use by multiple families. The toilet block was typically located in a separate building at the back of the lot, and it was serviced by a private company that collected the waste and disposed of it elsewhere. The conditions in these toilet blocks were often unsanitary. and they were a breeding ground for disease. Despite the many challenges associated with outdoor toilets, they remained a ubiquitous feature of life in Ohio and other states well into the 20th century. It wasn't until the 1940s and 1950s that indoor plumbing became more widespread, and the use of outdoor toilets began to decline. In California, the situation with outdoor toilets was quite similar to other states in the western region of the U.S. In the early days of the state's history, many people used outdoor pit latrines, which were often located at the back of their property. These latrines consisted of a simple hole in the ground covered with a wooden or concrete structure. As the state became more developed, indoor plumbing became more common, but there were still many areas that lacked access to proper sewer systems. In some rural areas, septic tanks were installed to handle waste, while in more urban areas, a complex network of pipes and treatment plants was developed to handle the city's wastewater. In the 1920s, California experienced a population boom, and many people moved to the state in search of work. This influx of people put a strain on the existing infrastructure, including the sewer systems. To address this issue, the state began investing in new technologies, such as chemical toilets, which were portable and could be used in areas where traditional plumbing was not available. One notable example of this was the use of chemical toilets during the construction of the Hoover Dam in the 1930s. Because the construction site was in a remote location and lacked access to traditional plumbing, chemical toilets were used to handle the waste produced by the thousands of workers on the site. Overall, the story of outdoor toilets in California is one of adaptation and innovation, as the state worked to find new solutions to the challenges posed by a growing population and changing technology.